Second thing, Mr. President, I'm going to need just a few minutes because I want to address something that, to be honest, I'd rather not address tonight, but I'd rather address it tonight than in my last meeting, which is next week. So in the weeks leading up to the November city election, I was very surprised to see a political mailer come out falsely accusing me of pressuring our city clerk to get illegal access to election equipment. And I've addressed this in the past over social media. I know where it comes from, but and I would prefer, I just, you're in this position and people come after you and it kind of comes with the territory, and I just thought I'm gonna ride it out. People will think what they want to think. But in the time since, even in recent weeks, I continue to get comments in the community, verbally and through social media, making accusations to me about this. And so while I have this public platform, I did want to offer a little bit more detail as to what's behind that, very transparently. I do have some notes here that I'll refer to somewhat. It'll probably go back and forth. But, it's one thing. I said it comes with the territory, but it's one thing to take a quote somebody said and take it out of context, or to criticize somebody for a position you didn't like. It's another thing to make an outright false claim, which is what this was. So residents may recall that in the weeks and months following the 2020 election, that Livonia was brought up by state officials and in the media, both locally and nationally, along with Detroit, with questions about our election processes. There was one point that our clerk's office was even subpoenaed by the state over this issue. As a elected official, and as somebody that just as an elected official was interested, and as well as getting a lot of questions from residents, I spent a lot of time looking into better understand how our election processes work, and had many phone calls and in-person meetings with Clerk Nash. She was always willing to answer my questions. Conversations with her, as I recall, were always constructive. They were congenial. They were helpful. I came away from those conversations convinced, and I remain convinced, that Livonia's elections were operated with integrity. I have no doubt in my mind about that. I have taken my analysis from talking to Clerk Nash. I've got charts and graphs and everything I've put together just so that if I was ever asked again, I could speak knowledgeably about it. I've shared that with some people that have asked. I have no doubt that Livonia's elections were run with integrity, and I've actually said that from within these council meetings in the past when it's come up. And on one occasion, I remember I got a text from Clerk Nash afterwards saying thank you for your comments. So I just want to put that issue to bed right off the bat. There was one person, however, that asked questions I could not answer. In December of 2020, our former Senator Patrick Colbeck, who is a personal friend of mine, called me with questions not about our processes, but about the equipment. And I didn't know the answers to his questions. I'll be the first to say he's a true engineer. I might have a piece of paper that says I'm an engineer, but he's a true engineer. His technical expertise goes way beyond mine, and he was asking me questions that I didn't even know how to answer. That being said, I, like a lot of you, had read news reports about people that were looking into those things, and I didn't know the details of it, but I really didn't have an interest in getting personally involved in looking into that, and I expressed that. But about a week later, and it was on a Saturday night, somewhere around New Year's Day, I was out in Kansas visiting family for Christmas, and I got a call from him again. It was on a weekend, and he was asking for my help in getting in touch with Clerk Nash with some level of urgency because he had some questions about our election equipment, wanted to get some information from it. I again expressed my not interested, and I didn't understand it enough to get involved. And he indicated to me that he was ready to go to national media with his concerns about Livonia's elections. Being somebody who was convinced that Livonia's elections were above board, not wanting to see Livonia's name dragged through the mud, I asked him to please hold off, and I said I wasn't going to give him Clerk Nash's number, but I would call Clerk Nash, and I would see what the city could and could not provide. And that's exactly what I did. And over the next couple of days, there was a series of phone calls between me, Clerk Nash, City Attorney Bernier at one point, to try to understand what information, if any, Livonia could provide in answer to his questions. There was one conversation I recall with, and I'm not gonna, this is 3 years ago, so I'm not going to pretend to be able to quote verbatim these conversations. However, I do specifically remember in one conversation with Mr. Bernier, when he had explained to me why the city could not provide the information that was being requested, I specifically remember saying to him, that's good enough for me. And I relayed this information to Mr. Colbeck. I recall him being very disappointed, but he was respectful, and that, as far as I was concerned, was the end of the matter. And then it was nearly 2 years later, last December, might have even been a year ago this week, that I got a call out of the blue from a Detroit News reporter asking me for comment on a document that Clerk Nash had sent to the state attorney general about these events. And I asked the reporter to send me that document since I didn't even know it existed before I got his phone call. And upon reading it for the first time, I have to tell you I was surprised, I was disappointed, and I was hurt by Nash's portrayal of our conversations. A few days later, after this article came out, I was walking into City Hall. Ms. Nash, I heard her calling my name. She and I ended up stepping into the council chambers. We had a very nice, respectful conversation. She apologized to me for the way that article had come out. We had a very respectful discussion about it. She affirmed my account of what had happened. I thanked her. I forgave her. I asked that the record be corrected. Now, I don't know whether anything happened from that or not, but that was the end of the conversation, and I let it go. Fast forward nearly a year, and Livonia voters received a political hit piece a couple months ago making claims about me that were unequivocally false. And so I just want to say emphatically, you can search all my public comments on social media. You can search all the video from these meetings. You will not find a single instance of me questioning the results of the 2020 election. And I definitely did not pressure our city clerk to illegally hand over election equipment. What I did do was what I always try to do when citizens ask me questions I can't immediately answer. Contact the appropriate subject matter experts, in this case, the clerk and the city attorney, and gather the information necessary to provide an informed response. And that is all that happened here. Now, I know there are some who, for political reasons, want the false narratives around the situation to live on regardless of what I say. But for those with a sincere interest in the truth, I'm grateful for the opportunity to publicly explain what happened. And anyone who has further questions about this is welcome to contact me. My information is available on the city website. So thank you for allowing me to do that, Mr. President.
Thank you.